Hi, this is Rodrigo from ListenLoop, and today on Marketing Talk, we're here with Renee from powerinbox. Renee, can you tell us more about yourself and where you work?
Sure. So I'm a VP of Marketing at powerinbox. Been here for about a year. I've been involved in email marketing, though, and marketing for 20 years. I've been at several different companies. I've worked with lots of different kinds of marketing automation and ESPs. And basically, I live for the numbers because they're awesome. And it's good to know. It tells you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong.
Excellent. And just to set the table for our viewers and audience, tell us about your responsibilities. What are you overseeing? You know, VP of Marketing seems to mean a lot of things for a lot of different companies. Just give us a high-level overview of what it is you're tackling on a day-to-day or week-to-week.
Sure. So the numbers, like I said, actually tell me how I'm doing. But the truth of the matter is we're all about personalization. And so everything I do marketing-wise, and that's pretty much everything right now at powerinbox, from events to things like this, podcasts or interviews, as well as webinars and the entire email operation. At powerinbox, everything I do, we try to personalize it. That's what we're all about. So email personalization, and I try to carry that over into our events and anything else that we do. The more personalized means that the things that you're doing are more relevant to the people that you're presenting them to. Get a chance to talk to the customer in a way where you're actually talking to that person, to that individual, not to their company and not to a group, but actually to that person. So everything that I'm doing, everything I'm overseeing, anything from creating a video down to sending out an email to actually going to an event and doing something that's personalized. I think that that's the key.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, marketing in particular has talked about the power of personalization now for many years. And one of the things that's always on the top of my mind is, what is the promise of personalization? I think we all have some kind of emotional and intuitive connection to it, but sometimes I think marketers forget or don't recall or know what really is the kind of dollars and cents, logical, right-brained reasoning for personalization. Do you have any thoughts on that?
For sure. I think we get, as marketers, and definitely I think on the email marketing side, we get sort of caught up in the numbers of, well, X amount of people have opened the email, 20%, 30%. Those are great numbers. They're better than anything that is out there. And again, I think numbers are really important. It's a matter of finding the right numbers. So when I say, and I talk to somebody, hey, 30% is a really great number. It's way above, industry standard. But that means 70% of your database is not opening your email. That means 70% of your database is not even seeing what you're sending. And I think it all comes down to the fact that we're so worried about giving over good numbers instead of stopping and saying, okay, just because something seems to be working, we need to take a step back. Because people want to get things that are personalized, that are relevant, something that means something to them. I'll give you an example. I went to an event in North Carolina. I don't live in North Carolina, and I signed up to go to an event on an online program. And a couple weeks later, I get an email from that same company saying, hey, these are the other events that are in your area. And they're all from North Carolina, from Raleigh, the Raleigh area. I don't live there, and therefore I'm not going to be going to any of those events. Now, it could have been very easy for that company to turn around and say, hey, you know what? Based on her location, I know that she's not in Raleigh. Today she's in, New York City. Let's show her what's happening in New York City. Maybe she'd want to go. It's a win-win. It's a win-win for me. I'm receiving an email. It's personalized to me. It's saying, hey, Renee, you're in New York City. Here's the events that are happening now, or in the next couple of days. Maybe you want to stick around to enjoy them. And it's also a win-win for those companies that are actually having the events. I'm actually interested. I'm actually going to go. It's only good for them. So in the long run and in the end, actually putting some time and energy and effort into thinking about how your emails actually should be personalized. And again, it doesn't have to be necessarily to me, Renee, in the sense that everything in that email says, hi, Renee, how you doing, Renee? What's going on, Renee? Not that, but more so, oh, Renee happens to be in New York City right now. Let's give her the information she needs so she can take care of whatever she'd like to do at this point in time. And that's being relevant. And that's very engaging to me as a consumer or as a customer, whether it's B2B or B2C, understanding that, yeah, I could go to any of those events and you're talking to me in New York City. And I think that that's really key. And we're not doing enough of that. And I think what's happening is you're finding a lot of companies are actually losing the eyeballs and the stickiness to their email campaigns because they're not sending them emails that are relevant and engaging and obviously personalized.
Definitely. And it brings up an important question that comes up often, and it's effort versus value, right? What you say resonates strongly with me. And I often wonder what criteria do you use to determine whether you should personalize, whether you should invest the time, energy, resources to go that extra mile that you're referring to, right? To understand that you're not from uh, North Carolina, and in a given day you were in New York, and most of the time you're in another country.
Mhm.
How should marketers think about the criteria they use to determine whether they should personalize?
Well, I think if you take a step back and you say you've spent, most marketers are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, a year to build a database. That's all. That's what they're doing, right? You go to trade shows, you sponsor a webinar, you have a face-to-face event, you spend a lot of money on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook in order to collect these names and these leads and these email addresses. And if you're not then turning around and sending them emails that are interesting and relevant and personalized, you're going to lose them. So that 20-30% of opens is really not all that great when you stop and think about how much money you've spent to just get 20 or 30% of your database to actually open. Now, if you stop and take a step back and say, okay, I can personalize, lots of different ways I can personalize. There's lots of different ways that I can intrigue and incent and engage with my customer. It just takes a little bit of thought, and that little bit of thought goes a long way. I mean, if you send out a mediocre email, chances are your return on that investment is going to be just that. It's going to be mediocre. You spend just a little bit more time into creating a personalized experience, a relevant experience, that engagement level is going to shoot sky high, and that return on investment is going to be huge. You're going to see different numbers, because really at the end of the day, it's not really the opens, and it's not necessarily the clicks, it's how much revenue you're going to get from that email. And if we think in those numbers, in those terms of dollars and cents, it's a must-have. You have to personalize today. Email inboxes are jammed full of emails, and people are reading them, and people are getting them. The question is, are they opening yours? Are they looking at yours? Are they interested? Are they engaged? Are they clicking on it? Are they then going and actually purchasing? Or are they downloading? Or are they joining? Whatever it is, whatever that call to action is that you're trying to get them to do, and if you're not doing it personalized, then you're going to lose them. I've already, said to that company who sent me an email, I've already unsubscribed. They lost me. I'm not interested in what's going on in Raleigh, North Carolina, at least today. Maybe next time I'm there, I would be. That is not something I'm, willing to stick around and wait to the next time I go to that particular city. So I think the time is now. We see it in everybody's experience with the receiving of emails that they go, wow, how did that person get to me? I mean, I'm not interested in this, I'm not interested in that, or this product doesn't exist anymore, or they don't have this product in my size, or hey, I'm not even this, interested in this, and I never was. And you're going to find people are going to start unsubscribing. They don't want their inboxes jam-packed, and you're going to lose them. And then all those dollars that you've spent to bring them into your database are for naught.
You're definitely preaching to the choir here. One of the things I've started doing recently is more on the inbound leads, but also on some of my account-based strategic initiatives. I have been taking the extra time and effort to prepare a series of ads for that target. I go to their website, I look at their brand colors, I look at their copy, the image assets that they have, and I'll prepare a sample of 4 ads for a target account. And then I'll also look at their case studies, right? Successful clients they've had, and I'll use our algorithm to do a lookalike list of their clients. And then I'll email them and I'll say, here's a turnkey account-based advertising campaign I have prepared for you. It's got ads, it's got target accounts. Let's talk. And I have to agree with you that that campaign has definitely been performing better in terms of engagement. But here's what kills me. You mentioned earlier that you go the extra mile, you get more ROI for sure. And you also mentioned this idea of people opening the email. And that's where I right now just, that really just, gets to me. I put in all this effort, right? I create a really personalized email, and I try to evoke the level of personalization I committed to this email in the subject line. And then when I see that it's not being opened, right? You mentioned earlier this idea that 70% of those emails aren't being opened. Ooh, boy, that just needles me, right? Because I went the extra mile, and I'm trying to stand out, and I did that high level personalization, and then the emails aren't being opened, right? How do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
Well, I really do believe that when you start to actually send relevant and personalized and engaging emails to people, and you catch them, you're not going to catch them every time, right? Sometimes you'll find that's maybe not that interesting, or it's not interesting to them. When it is, though, and they start to open mails and they realize that what you're sending them is very relevant and is very personalized, suddenly I think you're going to start to see more and more opens, more and more click-throughs as you're sending out your campaigns, because you're going to catch them. They're going to go, oh, wow. I've been thinking about that particular item or that particular data sheet, because all this applies to B2B and B2C. I don't care where you are in the world and what company you're sending your emails to. Everybody is looking to see something in their inbox that speaks to them, that makes them stop and go, huh. And I think that once you start sending these emails over and over and over again, and people start to open them, and they will, you're going to start to see that instead of having a 20% open rate, you're going to go to a 30%, and you're going to climb to a 40%. It just takes a little time, but it's worth the effort and the energy. And I think it's also important to note that a lot of this is not necessarily always effort. A lot of the personalization, for example, being able to make sure everything that's being put in the email is up to date. So one of my pet peeves is if I receive an email from a company and I see a photo that the model is wearing, let's say, a sweater, and I love it. And that's what I want, right? They've caught me. I click, and then I go and I see it's out of stock. It kills me. Why are you sending me an email that shows me a sweater that you know I'm going to want, and now you're telling me it's out of stock? Don't send me that email. Send me an email with something else. Now, what we can do easily is we scrape information off of websites, and usually websites are the most up-to-date and relevant information to your users. Why not scrape that information right into your emails? Then your emails are always up to date. So I'm not going to see that picture of that woman wearing that particular sweater. I'm going to see another item that is in stock and in my size and available for me to purchase in my email. That doesn't take a lot of effort. This is already information that's already up on your website. It's already been vetted. It's already been approved. You have lots of budget to put design into your website because that's the face of your company. Now I'm saying, hey, just scrape that information right off your site, put it into your email. That's something that I call set and forget kind of information, because what happens is that every time you change that information, that image, that webinar, that seminar, whatever, that ebook that you're pushing, you change that on your website, it's automatically going to change in your email. So there's always something up to date and relevant in that email. And that's so easy. That's a set and forget. You don't even have to think about it after you've done it. I love this for programs like welcome programs and reward programs, and pretty much any kind of blog post that's going to change and you want people to see them. Once you put them in the email, every time that person opens it, they're going to see the most up-to-date information that's on the website. So what you see today is not necessarily what you're going to see if you open that same, or you get a different email. You're not going to see the same information, because that information is constantly being refreshed and up to date. So there are a lot of features in personalization and in creating dynamic content that actually doesn't take any extra effort whatsoever. It's completely set and forget. It's always going to be on. It's always up to date. And it's always relevant.
And you raise a really good point about measuring your results, and I love this idea of set it and forget it. Big advocates of that here too. Let me kind of focus in on that measuring success aspect. How does an organization measure its success with and without personalization? Are you setting up cohort analyses that look at emails with and without personalization? How do you all think about that?
Well, I think it's also, before I answer that question, I think it's also important that there is several different ways of personalization. There's companies that have a lot of first-party information about their database. They know a lot of things about who their customers are. And then you've got companies that don't. So first-party information is only one part of the personalization. The other part could be geo-targeting. It could be geo-targeting, device targeting, weather. There's so many different variables based on when a person actually opens the email to find out who they are, where they are, what they're doing. You can combine it with the first-party data, or if you don't have that first-party data, you can put in a form, learn more about your database that way. I think I lost track of what your question was, but I thought it was really important that you don't necessarily have to have that first-party data. Measurements, there we go, I'm back on track. So measuring, I think the best way to measure is to understand what you're doing today, and then comparing it to what you're doing tomorrow. And also to make sure that you're measuring apples to apples. It's really important. And to make sure you're measuring the right kind of numbers. So I think that the first way to start it is actually to understand how your database is engaging with your emails to begin with. And there's a really great pixel that you can drop into the emails and sort of get that baseline that tells you how people are actually engaging. So we have measurements that tell you, for example, whether a person just deletes it. That's usually time in emails about 0 to 2 seconds. And then after that, you've got people who are just like scanning it or just quickly glancing at it and then deleting it. And then you've got those people that are actually really reading it. And so once you understand how your database is sort of interacting with your emails, it gives you a better understanding about how it is when you move forward. So of course you could talk ROI. So how did this campaign without relevant and personalized information compared to a campaign that did? But you have to make sure it's in the same kind of list, because quite often you send an email to a list of people who haven't really been kind of talking to you much over the past 6 months, whatever, compared to a list that they're very active. You can't make a comparison to those. So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever baseline you're setting, you're making sure that you're comparing that to the right kind of lists moving forward. A/B testing, everybody talks about it, it's very key. You can always do an A/B test and see what's working, what's not working. That's always very important. And my favorite was Delaquist was talking to us about numbers. And I really, again, this goes back to making sure that you're actually looking at the right numbers. What are you trying to get out of your campaign? Are you really interested in how many opens? Are you interested in how many click-throughs? Or are you really looking at how much ROI you got out of that campaign? So we have lots of customers who actually look and say, okay, I sent this campaign without being personalized, and I had X ROI, and then I personalized the campaign, and I saw a huge increase, like 20, 30, 40, 50% ROI, which is great. And that's really the bottom line. I think you want to look to see what are you getting out of what's the main thrust of your campaign. And that ROI could be purchases in B2B, B2C, like any kind of customer purchase, or in the B2B space where people have downloaded your product or they've downloaded your ebook, whatever that call to action is again. That's your ROI, and that's what you're pushing people to do. And you want to know how many people are actually doing that, and then what kind of business that's turning into.
Yeah, and it, for me, it brings up this question: why does email continue to hold such a powerful place among marketing channels, with so many to choose from? Right, direct mail, email, phone calls, social, in-person events, et cetera, et cetera. How is it that email can maintain its place for such a long time and remain powerful?
Well, it's funny. I think my CEO loves to say that people change physical address, but usually don't change their email address. So usually maybe you've got more than one. Maybe you have a Gmail, and then you've got your company email, and then maybe you have another one. Really just depends. But normally people have one email address, and that's what they stick with. And that's how we kind of are defined today, I think, is by that email address. And so therefore, it's a very powerful tool. I think, like I said before, I think it's really important to remember that we're spending all this money to get these email addresses, to get these leads. And that's where we're sinking a lot of our, most of our marketing dollars, is to actually just keep feeding that funnel, right, for sales. And so if we're not nurturing that funnel as marketers, and we're not taking care of that funnel and sending them these emails, how else are you going to be in touch? People do snail mail. Again, today they're doing things, but it's more expensive. And it's not always as timely, right? With email, you could send out an email this morning, you've got it, boom, you've got a person who's going to sign up for your webinar. Oh, I forgot to sign up before, I'm going to sign up now, I'm going to get on the webinar. Whatever the case may be, it's very timely. It happens immediately. Again, it's very targeted. These are people who more or less have already raised their hands and told you, I'm interested in learning more about you. I know, I've met you somewhere, I've signed up the form, I've done something, tell me who you are, give me more information. So I think email is the address, and we only see people talking about it. There's so many studies, I just read one yesterday, that email is the primary mode of conversation with their customers. It has to be. It's the one address that we know works. People aren't picking up their phones anymore. People, quite often, companies don't even have a switchboard. So the only way to contact people is via their cell phone, and people are not apt to give out their cell phone numbers because they don't want that person calling and nagging them all the time. How else are you going to reach them? Email is the only way to communicate. So I think that it will continue to rise. It will continue to be the main mode of conversation, and it's the most direct, because these are people, like I said, who've told you they want to be in touch with you and to hear from you and to talk to you. And if they don't, they'll unsubscribe, and that's great. Unsubscribes are not a bad thing. It just means that you're cleaning your list and opening space for people who do want to hear from you. and spending your money and your time and your effort on people who are interested. So again, if they're already telling you they're interested, give them what they want. Give them personalized experience. It's really not like it was before. It's not that batch and blast era of 10 years ago where you didn't know anything about your data and you didn't know anything about your leads. You didn't have any information. Today, the world is very, very different, and we're much smarter. We understand. We're building our databases properly. We're cleaning them. Why not give the people what they want and what they're interested in, what they'll engage with?
Yeah, and I wonder, to what extent is social media eating into email's place as the king of digital channels? Have you seen that evolve in the last couple of years?
I don't think so. I think that social has its place, and social has the place again to bring people into your database. So socially, you might send out a tweet. You might interest somebody in something that you're sharing, whether it's an event face-to-face or whether it's coming to your site to download something or to read a blog. But eventually the idea, again, is to get them to sign up. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with LinkedIn, same thing with all of social. The whole end of the day is you're trying to get an information, and usually that's an email. You're trying to get that email. So that's just one more avenue in order to create your database or to build your database. It's not any different than doing a webinar or to do a face-to-face event or any other way that you're trying to get leads into your funnel. So it's very important. It's just one more piece. But again, it's not the best way to communicate with your database. Your best way to communicate with your database is to communicate with what you have. That's the communication that you need to personalize. You can't really personalize on Twitter. You can't really personalize on Facebook. You can't really personalize on LinkedIn unless you're going one by one by one. And who has the time? We know that we don't have the time for that. So as marketers, we don't do the one-to-one marketing in that respect. Our one-to-one marketing is sending out emails that are personalized and talk to the person's, what's relevant to them, what's going to engage them. And we're trying to get to that top of that pyramid, right? I remember back 10 years ago, there was the pyramid at the bottom that was batch and blast, and the top is one-to-one. We're almost there. I'm almost at the ability to do completely one-to-one marketing on scale. I'm not talking about going to LinkedIn and sending, personal message. I'm talking about scale. So we're almost there, and you can do that and get started now with, sending out relevant emails, personalized emails, creating dynamic content for your emails.
Right. Well, let me switch course here and ask you, what's the most interesting thing you've learned about email marketing in the last year?
Wow, in the last year,
if you want to narrow it down, maybe the last 3 or 6 months.
No, I think the thing is, I never realized the breadth of ESPs that are out there and marketing automation systems that are available today. Every industry has an ESP that they might focus on using because that particular ESP understands and knows, and then to work with them, to create the right kind of programs, and then try to figure out how to use dynamic content within those emails. I never knew how many companies were out there. It's unbelievable, and they're all doing great things. I think the world of email marketing is incredible, and I think that it's just getting more exciting and more relevant to us as marketers. And I think also it's a lot easier than it was before. Every time I do things and I think of things and we have ideas and we go, hey, can we do that? It's like, oh yeah, we can totally do that. You want to, whatever you see on your website today, you can do that almost in an email. So if you're personalizing your website, why not personalize your emails? If you have a pop-up on your website, why not have a pop-up in your email? If you have a carousel on your website showing lots of different products, lots of items, why not have that in your email? So I think there's a couple things I've learned. I thought it was going to be hard, but one of them is the breadth of how many companies are out there to help you actually send your email and send it right and properly, and then also help you with all these analytics, make sure it gets into the inbox and all those kind of things that are important. But then also to understand that pretty much today what you see on websites can be done in email. And that's the personalization. That's the dynamic feeling of getting an email that email that you're receiving is dynamic. It's moving. There's a video, there's a pop-up, like I said, whatever. And that's really cool. I think that's like a big thing I learned. A couple big things I learned this past year.
Let me again just switch courses here and talk more tactics and learn from your experience as the VP of marketing. Is powerinbox pursuing an account-based strategy?
Of course, I think everybody today is looking at account-based marketing and how to do that. And of course, we're trying to get there as well. I think it makes the most sense. It makes it easier to segment your database. Make sure that you're sending the most relevant information to different segments of your database, as well as if you're focusing on a specific company, making sure that everybody within that company is getting something that makes sense to them. So for example, if you've got an account that you're working on and there's people in finance and there's people in marketing and there's people in, in the C-level, you want to make sure that each of them is getting something that's interesting to them. Finance, no offense, is probably not so interested in the fact that you can, do X, Y, and Z in the email. They want to understand what's the ROI to it, right? Just like maybe the management, but differently. Or the finance wants to know how you're going to, close the deal. I think we just have to think in those terms. And that's the beauty of dynamic content, is that you can actually create one email for everybody in an account and switch out the content based on who's going to receive it and do it easily. And that could be by a scrape on your site, or just creating 3 different pieces of content, and then through this your email service provider, the right content is put in based on the person. There's everybody that's doing account-based marketing can easily do this and see huge value from it.
Beyond email, what other channels are you using to reach some of your target accounts?
So I think basically our big reach out is probably events, and whether it's as participants, whereas our salespeople and marketing people are actually going to events and meeting people and talking to people and finding those people and having meetings. I think face-to-face is still so very important, especially on the big accounts that you're trying to land, or that you're making sure that you're keeping them as a customer. So I think face-to-face events are great. Obviously, they tend to be more expensive than others, but there's so many events that are happening today locally that there's no reason why you can't just take off a day and go spend it and nurture those face-to-face prospects or customers. And I think another way is also through service, making sure that you're getting good service, the best service, making sure a person feels comfortable with your product. And then that's throughout the entire account. And I think that those are 2 really big ones that we're definitely pushing. Because, we all know, and this is sales 101, it's a lot harder to bring a new customer than it is to keep a customer. So we're doing our best to make sure that our customers are satisfied and happy throughout that account, whether at every level within the account.
Yeah, and to what extent what was that?
Sorry, and obviously email.
To what extent are you using digital advertising channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, or display advertising, banner ads, to generate brand awareness or even demand generation for the target accounts?
We ourselves have tried Facebook and LinkedIn and a few other different ways to sort of get our name out there. We've had the best luck up until now with LinkedIn. And it's been actually really interesting to see. I worked at different companies where Facebook was the de facto place to get leads. But on that side of things, we've been really, really fortunate with LinkedIn. And I think Twitter for awareness is always great. It's just a really fun way to be in touch and let people know and to communicate, certain things and to get people interested in who you are and what you're doing. But really where we're seeing the most lead growth at top of funnel is at LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'd love for you to walk us through maybe some of your tactics for your LinkedIn ad campaigns. Are you specifically, job title targeting? Are you specifically naming the accounts that you're interested in the audience builder? Are you focused more on text ads versus sponsored content? Love to hear more of the tactics. I think our audience would love to learn more from you on that.
For sure. Well, we tried a little bit of everything that you just said. We dabbled. We're now pushing into InMail. That's our new thing. We haven't really kicked it off, but that's something that we're definitely interested in. I think that's a great way to build out before events, to get people interested in actually meeting you maybe at an event. We're focusing on groups. So especially if there's an actual group for an event, it's a great way to get your name out there prior to, so that you're sort of already on somebody's mind when they come, or when they come and they see your booth, they go, oh yeah, I remember that company was sort of in touch with me, or had some kind of sponsored content in my group. And I think that's a great way to, like I said, to focus on events. And so now we're trying to do that with InMail as well. With regards to most of our campaigns, they're sponsored content. So what we do is we usually go after groups with a specific industry, for example. So we're very hot on the gaming industry right now. And so we put together an ebook, and we're doing sponsored content to the groups. And that's how we're actually getting a lot of really great downloads and really great companies and people. And so that's been really successful. In addition to other campaigns where most of it has been ebooks that we're sponsoring. And they're really fun ebooks. They're very informative, but they're easy to digest. So people are interested in downloading that information. And those have been focused a lot on company lists that we've kind of put together, or again, they're focused on industry. We have several different ebooks that we've created based on industries. So that's been really great. I think the more you can segment, I don't think is the right word, but if you can figure out a way to, yeah, exactly, to get it down to a specific group, again, give them, personalize, give them what they're interested in, as opposed to something that's very generic. And it's really, actually, we did this, we actually created one ebook, and from that we created all the industry ebooks. So it was almost like regurgitating the information, but making it more interesting to that particular group. So we did really get down to the personalization side of things on that. So that's been really great. And so we've been pushing it for the gaming industry, and we obviously have one for retail, and for several other industries, and we've seen great success. So, and we only just started, so I'm very, very pleased. We haven't had
that's awesome. This is,
like I said.
I was going to say, this is awesome. This is why I love marketers, teaching marketers. We've done a lot of experimentation with LinkedIn campaigns that specifically identify job titles and companies that we want to target. And there's always an interesting trade-off there between audience reach inside of LinkedIn versus targeting and personalization. And I think what I'm hearing, to recap what you said, that I found kind of new and interesting for ListenLoop, is campaign that's targeting a specific group that you're interested in. That's one campaign type. A different campaign could be one that targets an entire industry, ended with a job title, perhaps, right, to make it relevant to your target buyers.
Sure.
And then that way you get more reach, perhaps less targeted with respect to the individual company you're after, but certainly more reach. And one of the things that I think marketers struggle with when they're trying to set up an ABM focused campaign on LinkedIn is just how arduous and time consuming it can be to input to set the parameters of your campaign, given that you have to enter company names one by one into LinkedIn.
Right.
So, if you've got a list of 100, 200 accounts, you're in there typing out 200 names, hitting enter, waiting for the page to load and keep going. And God, that's so frustrating, but there's a shortcut around it. And I'm hearing it's to target a specific industry with a job title, and you can kind of take a shortcut there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so stoked about what's happening right now with this gaming thing that we're doing on LinkedIn. It's been amazing. And I think that we're learning a big lesson, and that's the same idea with InMail. There's so many ways to think about how you can actually use InMail to your advantage, and to get to know people and to get them interested in who you are and what you're doing. And I think that I'm just learning new things every day on how to use the social aspects of LinkedIn and even Facebook and Twitter. I think that there's always something to learn. I'm always trying to read a new article so I can learn a new tip on how to build an audience, or how to get people, the right people, to be reading what it is that you're putting out there. I mean, everybody's producing such amazing content today. The hard part is just finding those people to actually read it. And I think that this is LinkedIn and groups. That's why they're there, to get information about something that they're interested in. So it's a great way to go.
Absolutely, and I think I'm sure there's an interesting study out there that says that the relevancy of InMail, I think, really took off and became something interesting and worthwhile exploring as they delivered more installed apps of the LinkedIn mobile app, right? Because InMail, if it's just another email being delivered to a person's LinkedIn email, is one thing. But I think an InMail that triggers an alert or a notification on someone's phone, wherever they are, I think those get checked. Those get opened. I know I certainly do. And I think recently that's why InMail has become more interesting, at least to us.
Right. I agree with you. I think mobile has, yeah, for sure, has made it that much more interesting. I agree with you 100%.
Well, let me ask you two last questions here. And the first one is, what would you say is the one or two biggest challenges you faced in implementing an account-based marketing strategy?
I think like everything, it's just struggling for time. You know, it's the time element. There are only so many hours in the day, and you know, I think like most people, we have a life outside of work, a spouse or children or significant other or whatever. You're just your social being, and I think that's my biggest struggle. It's finding the time, and it's also sometimes I think internally, it's getting everybody together to sort of focus on this specific goal. Everybody has goals in different departments, and sometimes it's hard to sort of kind of grab everybody by the hand and say, okay, we're going to take the next hour, and this is what we're going to sit on. This is really important. We all need to be focused on this, and we all have to have this goal. So I think those are definitely huge challenges that are overcome. But for me, those are the two. I think it's just making sure that we're all sort of focused on the same goal internally, and I think then again, just finding the time to actually implement. So and like I said, those are not huge hurdles, either of them. So I think that we have everything else in place and ready to go to make it happen.
Excellent, Renee. Thank you so much for joining us here on Marketing Talk. We love it when marketers teach marketers. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, just really quickly. I think that it'd be kind of fun if you're interested in learning more about dynamic content and what it means and what it can do, and actually seeing it in your own inbox to see if it actually works. You can send an email to demo@powerinbox.com. That's DEMO @POWERINBOX.com. And when you send that email, you'll actually receive an email right to your inbox that has all the dynamic content in it. So you can kind of see it for yourself what that means.
Nice. I like that. That's a really cool way to demonstrate the technology.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Rodrigo at ListenLoop, and this is Marketing Talk. Join us next week for more marketers teaching marketers real tactics and advice on how to improve your results and efficiency. Thanks, everyone.